Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 7. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday, Steelers Nation. In just over 24 hours, the Pittsburgh Steelers will begin its 2025 preseason, kicking off Saturday night against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dave, I know we always say there's a lot to talk about, but there is truly a lot to talk about in today's show.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Friday to you. Happy Friday to the listeners. It's football season. Watched a little bit of preseason football last night. I look forward to watching some more tonight. Shadur Sanders on the main stage tonight, and that'll be fun to watch as well. And you're right, we got a lot to talk about, some a little bit of controversial stuff overall too when it comes to contracts. And obviously Mike Tomlin met the media yesterday to preview the game, went over who's going to be playing, not playing. We'll preview the game for Saturday night, and a couple other tidbits to add in there as well too. And there's some roster moves that happened yesterday that we can recap once again, and who knows, there might be another couple of them today.
Wouldn't shock me if there was. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment, but the ones that have already occurred, Pittsburgh making a couple of roster swaps yesterday before that final open practice Thursday. They'll have a walkthrough Friday and then get ready to travel for the preseason game down in Duval. So the Steelers signing quarterback Logan Woodside and offensive lineman Andres Pete. Woodside has a lot of ties to Arthur Smith, can come in as number 4 quarterback, while Will Howard is shelved with that broken pinky finger on his throwing hand. And then Pete played third-team left tackle. He's played guard in his NFL career, extensive experience, former first-round pick of the Saints, and corresponding moves to free up those roster spots. Pittsburgh released backup long snapper Tucker Addington and offensive lineman Nick Broker, who was playing center, but struggling to see reps and just struggling in general. So Woodside's a guy that we talked about on a recent show, Dave. I know it took us a little while to get that name and kind of hemmed and hawed. Didn't have the best podcast radio, quote unquote, for you guys, but we got to the right answer.
Yeah, we did. That's always, I think that's somewhat of an attraction to what we do. It doesn't probably make for the best podcast or radio or however you want to look at it as. We'll all of a sudden go down these rabbit holes and a squirrel will fly out of nowhere and tinsel.
It's how the sausage gets made.
Yeah. But that was fun. Kind of on the fly thinking who would be the best fit based on working in the past with Arthur Smith, and jumped right out that Logan Woodside might be one of those guys they should consider because of him working with him. Arthur Smith working with Logan Woodside in both Tennessee and Atlanta, and you need a guy in a pinch. You need a guy that can get on the moving train super fast, and yeah, that made a lot of sense. So he's the newest quarterback on the team. We'll wait and see how much he plays, if any, Saturday night against the Jaguars. But yeah, that one made a lot of sense. And as far as the Andres Pete signing, first and foremost, props to you because we going through the training camp stuff every day. You had mentioned that Broker could be the guy at the end of the line there due to the kind of the depth and the health of the interior offensive line and the need at tackle with Gareth Warren missing time and a couple other people kind of dinged up along the way there. Look, you could, for this time of the offseason, we've talked about this team needing depth at the tackle position and probably an experienced guy. Andres Pete, probably not the worst that you could do in that situation. He has played tackle and guard in the NFL. He is a little bit long in the tooth, but he was even, on a roster last year with the Raiders and obviously spent most of his career with the Saints, a former first-round draft pick in 2015. The Steelers like that, those pedigree type guys. So this is a guy that should be able to come in right away. And I think you mentioned last night, immediately got snaps at left tackle. I would imagine we're going to see him at left tackle on Saturday night against the Jaguars as well, too. So, and then I think you also mentioned Ryan McCollum might be dealing with something. So we could see Nick Broker hurry up and turn around.
Absolutely. McCollum left practice very early yesterday, did not even make it through the individual portion, seemed to be frustrated and animated in this conversation with the training staff. And so we'll see his status because right now Pittsburgh has two functional centers for this game in Zach Frazier and Max Sharping. Probably one a third in this one. I know Spencer Anderson, Mason McCormick can dabble at center a little bit, but those guys really have gotten little to no reps throughout training camp. So we'll see if Broker has a quick return to Pittsburgh. We'll run through the list of names Mike Tomlin confirmed will not play in this opener in a little bit. Aaron Rodgers, the headliner, will not play in this game. Mason Rudolph will start, but some other notable guys that are hurt that probably won't play, at least dealing with stuff I want to mention at the top here, guys who did not practice yesterday due to injury. Cornerback Corey Trice with a hamstring, Dante Kent, his right foot, but he's been out of the boot. I think Jalen Ramsey's dealing with something minor, but he wasn't going to play in this game regardless. Calvin Austin's been out for about a week with an unknown injury. DJ Thomas Jones backslid. He did not practice yesterday. That's unfortunate for him, and line's getting pretty short at tight end. Of course, Will Howard didn't go. Calvin Anderson remains out. Alex Highsmith with the groin, and that's the list of the injured players who I wouldn't expect to play in tomorrow's opener.
All right, so we could see that Kevin Froch probably do a quick turnaround as well, too, right?
It seems possible because we know that Pat Fryermuth and Jonnu Smith won't play. I imagine Darnell Washington won't play a whole lot, maybe a quarter at most in this game, which leaves you with just Connor Heyward and J.J. Galbraith if Thomas Jones can't go.
Yeah, by the time this game kicks off Saturday night, you could have about a quarter of the 91-man roster in the street clothes, right?
Right, with all the guys who will be sitting out. A lot of veterans will confirm that in a little bit and get to Tomlin's press conference held yesterday. But really the news of yesterday was a little less about the training camp action at SVC and more about the contract situations regarding two headline names. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Cam Heyward and kicker Chris Boswell are looking for revised, restructured, or some form or fashion redone contracts. Heyward, of course, coming off a really strong season. He got that new contract at the start of last year. Boswell has 2 years left on his deal. We'll see how Pittsburgh handles that. So I know there's a long conversation here. Dave, you have a great article up on the site outlining the situation, solutions, your overall thoughts. I know you'll share it here. Let's start with Boswell because that, I think, is the easier conversation to have. It's one we've had multiple times throughout this offseason. You wrote, forget when that article went up, way early this offseason about Boswell, could and should get a cash advance of some sort this year. Best kicker in football for my money. A historically good year in Pittsburgh last year. Led the NFL in points, led the NFL in field goals made, broke Steelers records, etc. So let's start with Boswell. What is he looking for? How can this get done to satisfy both sides?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you start with the fact that he has an unguaranteed base salary this year of $3.12 million. And then when you look at what the top kickers around the league, and I laid all this out in early April in that article that I wrote on the site, and we've been talking off and on, and I've been kidding you about how Boswell shouldn't even bend over and pick up a football this summer until he gets this resolved and all. Not surprised at all that he, is wanting something done with his contract. Now does have 2 years left on the deal, 2025 and 2026, and we know historically the Steelers don't do extensions for players that far out who are not franchise quarterbacks and all. So the fact that Boswell could be looking for an extension here, something along those lines, it's probably, especially at his age, out of the question here. I think the big thing becomes, can you up his cash for 2025? And that really needs to be the case, especially coming off of the last season that he had in particular there. You need this guy in a very comfortable place going. You don't need him worrying about money or security or anything like that heading into this season. season. There's several different ways you can attack this. You could take a good chunk of his 2026 salary, which is also $3.12 million, and move that forward. And really, you could take a good portion of his base salary this year as well too, down to what his minimum would be. Turn all of that into a signing bonus. Maybe throw in another $1.5 million on top of it in additional cash, and then make his cash flow at least for 2025 top, probably about around $6.5 million in total should satisfy him. I laid out all the and this was back in April. I can't remember how many kickers may have gotten new deals since then, but anywhere nearing $7 million in total cash for Boswell in 2025 should make him happy. Now, if you're going to move money from 2026 to 2025, we're going to have a little bit of the same conversation here in a moment, maybe with Cam Heyward. You run the risk of all right, we robbed Peter to pay Paul from 2026. What's going to happen a year from now when Boswell's just staring at a minimum base salary for his accrued seasons and all like that? Are you going to get in the same situation as you're in this year? Yeah, potentially. But that's obviously a bridge to cross after the 2026 season, or after the 2025 season, I should say. Ways maybe around this is maybe you just add cash, to his 2025 year flat up, and turn it into a signing bonus, and then prorate it out the 2 years that way, and then just go ahead and fully guarantee his 2026 salary of $3.21 million, and then have conversations next year as far as maybe what his cash total should be based on how he kicks in 2025. Once again, I think an extension's probably not going to happen because he has 2 years out here, and I think the main goal here should be to get his cash for 2025 closing in on $7 million, however you want to do that. So do you rob Peter to pay Paul and then get in the same situation next year? Or do you just give maybe Boswell an additional, let's say, $3.5 million signing bonus this year, and then fully guarantee maybe his 2026 base salary, and then see what happens after the 2025 season? But long story short, something needs to be done, because this is a guy that really goes into the 2025 season underpaid as things stand right now.
He is outside the top 10, I believe, of kicker salaries from an average yearly value standpoint from that deal he had signed previously. I think Pittsburgh should and will take the rob Peter to pay Paul cash advance, move money from 2026 to 2025, because the issue is Pittsburgh doesn't do those extensions 2 years out. So you move the money up this year, and then, he's got the low base salary. Of course, he'll need a new contract then, but that falls under the parameters of Pittsburgh doing an extension 1 year out. So it doesn't break their quote unquote rules they've set for themselves as a franchise. So that's what I see as the most likely scenario. That happened to AB many years ago. So there was a little bit of precedent there. I assume whatever Boswell's angling for, once his agent wants him to become the highest paid kicker this season, probably from a cash standpoint. So what would it take to get there? It looks like Harrison Butker, the highest paid kicker overall right now.
Yeah, let me pull back up my April article here that I did on this, just to make sure I rattle off some numbers as far as cash totals go for, let's see, 2025. At the time that I wrote this, Harrison Butker was is scheduled to earn, while his APY is $6.4 million, his cash due is $3.835 million. The highest cash earner, and once again, you can look at the Brandon McManus deal that he had signed, but that was a shorter deal. He's scheduled to earn $7 million in cash Evan McPherson scheduled to earn $5 million in cash. Really, the McManus deal is an outlier. And it's been so long ago since I wrote this, trying to remember what happened with the McManus thing there. Let's see if I have that down on here. I don't think I do. What happened there? But regardless, if you wanted him to at least in reasonable cash flow topping, and really if you wanted him to kind of exceed the Harrison Butker thing as well too of 6.4 APY, moving a good chunk of his base salary in 2026 to 2025 should easily get that done.
Well, how much can they move up? They would take it to the minimum for next year. So how much money would that leave them? $2.5 million? What's the maximum they can move up from next season?
All right, the base for him next year is the minimum is 1.3. So 1.3 million. Subtract that from 3.12. What does that give you?
1.82 million.
All right. 1.82 would put Boswell. His cash is okay. Add that back to 3.12.
1.82. That puts you at. Hold on, I got to change the math. We're doing a lot of math here early, guys. 4.94 million.
All right, you're almost there at that point to top in the McPherson cash total. So you're not quite there when it comes to that.
So will you have to do your strategy of just giving him new money this year without touching next year's contract?
Yeah, you could probably just give him. You could probably give him just a $3 million additional signing bonus now.
Is that a new contract? How does that work in terms of just the financials?
You're just giving him an additional signing bonus.
So he just signs almost a piece of paper that says, here's an additional signing bonus, and his contract for next year is unchanged?
Right. And then you just prorate that out, the additional signing bonus over 2025 and 2026. So his cap number would move, $1.5 million this year by putting another $3 million in his pocket in cash and a signing bonus.
And obviously, then you're in true extension talks next year, so that 2026 number will probably get changed by the new deal, assuming that Boswell has a good season and he's healthy and everything is kosher to work out a long-term deal next summer.
Right. And let me see if I can pull up what happened with the Brandon McManus thing.
When was that signed? Is that a recent thing? I mean, I assume it was relatively recent.
Let's see. I think that was this year. Signed a 3-year base value 15.3 with $5 million guaranteed. He received a $5 million signing bonus and is due a $1 million roster bonus on the third day of the 2026 year. An additional $750,000 is due to him in performance incentives. So if you cut off the per game roster bonus and the $100,000 workout bonus that McManus could earn this year, and you just went off of the prorated signing bonus and the base salary that he's scheduled to earn this year, that puts his cash at technically $6.4 million.
So Pittsburgh, roughly $3.5 million they'd probably have to give him to get this thing done. Is that a good ballpark number to look at?
I think the big thing here is you want to, I mean,
he wants to be number one, and however you look at it, probably from the cash standpoint this year.
Right. So if you gave him $3.5 million, additional money somehow, either some of it coming from next year or just give him a flat out signing bonus, that's the easy way to get it done.
The odds seem high something will get done, and there shouldn't be too much of a controversy. I think most people recognize how good Boss has been, how underpaid he is, and he deserves that. I haven't gotten to see the lay of the land on the reaction from Steelers Nation about Boswell. Heyward's a different story. We'll talk about that in a second, but pretty confident something will get done with Boss, correct?
I have been throughout this thing. I don't think you want your kicker upset going, especially, you're going to probably be relying on him. And boy, he sure was money last year. You got to do something here with him.
And for those, I've seen a comment or two that he hasn't practiced. And while he's, of course, had a very light summer, as most specialists do, it's pretty easy times for them. He has kicked a little bit, not in a formal session, I don't think, whenever they've gone 11 on 11, but he has kicked on the side. He has done some warm ups. And so he has had a little more activity than maybe you would expect for a guy looking for that new contract or revised contract. So he's not exactly sitting there refusing to do anything, although I imagine he's not going to kick in the preseason, or at least not until that contract situation is resolved.
Sounds like his golf game's got a little bit better.
Has he been golfing a lot?
And I think that's what Ray Fittipaldo put out there, that he spent a lot of time on the golf course during training camp.
Well, hey, golfing's like kicking, and he can do both those things apparently pretty well. What has been the reaction from Steelers Nation? You've seen it more than yesterday. The news came out while I was at practice. Has there been, yeah, go sign Boz, or shut up and play? What's been the reaction?
When it comes to Boz specifically, most agree that, yeah, he probably does need to be taken care of. But then you've got the other part of the crowd that says he signed the contract, honor the damn contract,
But overall, the consensus, you would say, has been a positive, supporting pro player standpoint on Boswell, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally everybody gets it, especially coming off the season that he had, and especially since his last deal was signed. When was that last deal signed? What was it? 2022? Is that right?
That was the number in my head. Yeah, it looks like 22.
All right.
Yeah, 22.
So, and then, obviously he had that one down season, and was that, injury related with the hip and all like that. I think it's easy the way he bounced back that following season after that to put it on that there. So, I mean, the guy still has the leg, and there's no reason to think he's going to fall off the cliff this year. And hopefully they don't need him to kick a bunch of 50-yard field goals this year. Hopefully it's a lot of extra, hopefully he's the highest paid extra point kicker in the league.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice for sure. But he's there whenever Pittsburgh needs him, and they probably still will need him a fair amount this season. So that's the Boswell situation. Fairly cut and dry, not unexpected. I'm honestly surprised it kind of took this long into training camp for this to become a story. So put that aside. Now there's Cam Heyward. And I was working under the assumption, and maybe shame on me for being a little naive about it, that Heyward was really not practicing much. He's been dressing. Been working in individual sessions, but doing very little, if at all, in the team period portions. I figured that's just Mike Tomlin taking care of a 35 or 36-year-old defensive tackle. He doesn't need the reps. You got young defensive linemen like Derek Carman, Y.A. Black, etc., Logan Lee, get those guys reps. Apparently, Heyward is looking himself for a restructured, revised contract after the great season he had in 2024, despite signing a new contract right before the 24 season began. I know you have a lot of thoughts here. There's a lot of misnomers and probably misinformation out there. So I don't know how you want to approach this to start, Dave. I'm going to let you take the floor here, but kind of lay out at least the overall big picture stuff on Heyward.
All right. I think generally when you start probably with the reporting on this, it's unfair that to probably say that he's asking for an extension or quote unquote, I guess it technically would. He wants his cut. The fair way to frame it is he probably wants his contract addressed. All right.
Okay.
In some way, shape, or form. Once again, you're dealing with a guy that's got 2 years left on his contract. For the team to give him an outright extension would go against what this team normally does in that aspect. I think when you talk with the conversation with Cam Heyward and you see the pushback from a lot of the fan base, they say, well, he just signed a new deal last year. Okay. Yes, he did. And technically that was, a 2-year contract extension. However, I think it's important to remember what actually happened last September there. Cam Heyward, after the 2023 season, Cam Heyward had the 1 year left on his contract for 2024 that was scheduled to pay him $16 million. And that's going into the 2024 offseason there. And there was the talk about him wanting security. He wanting, and that was an unguaranteed $16 million at that. And him wanting to play at least 3 more years and wanted some sort of I guess commitment where it goes to that. He of course ended up signing the 2-year extension, but what happened with that last year is Cam Heyward did not pocket any more than the $16 million that he was originally on the books for. What they essentially did is they turned a good chunk of that $16 million that he was already scheduled to earn in 2024, and they turned it into a signing bonus, and then they added on 2 new years of new money. Now he had the extension called for him to earn base salaries in 2025 and 2026 of $1.3 million, and then there were unguaranteed March roster bonuses in both 2025 and 2026 of $13.45 million and $12.95 million respectively. Obviously, this year's March has already come and gone, so he's already earned that $13.45 million roster bonus for 2025, and now he's on schedule to earn a $1.3 million base salary this year, which puts him at a grand total of being set to earn $14.75 million in total cash this year. So the byproduct of him signing that extension last September was it basically guaranteed him the $16 million that he was already on the books to earn. Oh yeah, it dropped his cap number by 9 something million, I think, last year with which obviously $9.8 million, which it freed up cap space for the team, and basically it put him in a situation where, okay, look, we'll extend you, we'll guarantee your money for 2024, and then here's all the salaries that you are currently scheduled to earn, or and roster bonuses. Look, the team very easily could have turned around if Cam Heyward fell off the cliff last season and cut Cam Heyward for very minimal dead money. At that point, they could have technically cut him in March before paying him that roster bonus, made him a June 1st cap casualty, and then only had $4.9 million in dead money for 2025 and another $4.9 million in dead money in 2026. So what did Cam do? He went out and had obviously a fantastic season, proved a lot of naysayers wrong, and then now here he is in 2025 set to earn just 14 point, and I use just and only and all like that, but I mean it's contextualized, because when you look at what these other interior defensive linemen are making relative to what Cam Heyward's scheduled to earn this year, it really is peanuts based on what he did last year. So I imagine Cam does feel underpaid, especially when you add up last year's $16 million and $14.75 million this year. That means he's scheduled to earn over the course of the last 2 seasons just a little bit more than $30 million. That's peanuts, relatively speaking, compared to a lot of these other defensive linemen around the league. And look, even that contract that the extension that he signed last season, if you want to look at it just from a new money average of the 2 new years added, it's $14.5 million, which really puts him down there on the list here. So, all right. So what do you do here to make Cam Heyward happy? Well, as I laid out in my article yesterday evening there, there's several different ways you could attack this. When you look at guys like DeForest Buckner right now, he is scheduled to earn $23 million in 2025 cash. When you look at a guy like Leonard Williams with the Seahawks, he's scheduled to earn $20.85 million in cash. Cam Heyward has a roster bonus due in March of 2026. It's unguaranteed at $12.95 million. Could you take half of that and move it forward into 2025, pay it out as a signing bonus, and then get Cam's cash total in 2025 to fall right between Buckner and who was the other guy from the Seahawks I just mentioned?
Leonard Williams.
Yeah, Leonard Williams, and that be a fair outcome? Yeah, I think you could do that, and I think Cam could potentially be happy with that if indeed Cam is worried about how it looks on cash flow for a certain year. I tell you, the easier now. Look, if obviously if you move money forward like that, and gave him, say, a 6 point whatever that, whatever 12.95 divided by 2 is as a signing bonus, and then pay that to him in 2025. Obviously his cap number is going to increase a little bit there. I think the biggest thing overall here maybe that Cam's looking for is some security, right? He's under contract for 2026. None of that money is guaranteed. The easiest solution for this, I think, for both sides would just be, all right, Cam, look, we're going to fully guarantee your $12.95 million roster bonus for 2026, and we're going to go ahead and guarantee your base salary in 2026 of $1.3 million. So at least Cam comes out of this saying, hey, that's some security for me. I can go about my business, play this year, know that I'm going to get paid the additional, what's 12.9 and 1.3 million total together there. I know that I'm still going to get that money here. And then look, if I go out here and have another good season similar to the one that I had in 2024, maybe we can sit down and hammer out a new cash total for 2026. The unequivocal easiest way to probably make both sides happy here is to do that. Guarantee his roster bonus of $12.95 million in March of 2026, and guarantee his $1.3 million base salary, and then shake hands and everybody be fine.
I'm going to disagree on that, Dave. I'm not opposed to it personally. I think the organization would love to do that, but that would mean he gets no new money in this revised contract under that scenario, correct?
No new money in cash in 2025, right?
Or no new money at all. It's just guaranteeing the roster bonus next year and the base salary next year. And
Right.
there was no new money given to him in the contract he signed last year.
Well, the 2 additional years was new money, but none of it was guaranteed.
Guaranteed. Right.
Right.
And he got no new money in the 2024 season. He got it maybe a little bit earlier in the signing bonus, I assume, but there was no new money for him last year.
Right. The only byproduct of where he benefited overall is his 2024 money got fully guaranteed.
Right. And there was some at least illusion of security of, I want to play through 2026. My contract now runs through 2026. I feel like I can be a Steeler without looking over my shoulder of, am I going to become a free agent and, have to maybe play somewhere else, which he does not want to do. So
Right.
I don't think he'll want in back-to-back years to take no new money, especially after the year he just had. I think last year he knew he had limited leverage because he was coming off the injury, and so he really couldn't ask for new money. He had to maybe ask for something else, which is what he got, turn the signing bonus and a little bit of contract extension in a sense, just to kind of give him some thought of security. I think this year he wants to get paid because you would agree, and you wrote in the article, he's underpaid right now.
Mm-hmm. Especially from a cash standpoint.
Right. So because of the season he had, I don't think he'll want to go down that road again with the no new money aspect of the contract, which then gets you into, do you do the boss thing of push up some 2026 money? I love the signing bonus idea of take half of that. I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of what Heyward would accept and would be angling for. The question and concern then becomes, okay, we have to do this all over again next year because he's going to be obviously very underpaid then. And if he has just even a decent season, he'll want a new contract then. And is the team going to sit there and say, we can't do 3 contracts in 3 years with you, Cam Heyward? That's the concern.
Right. Look, I mean, whether or not you want to push forward, say half of his roster bonus from next year into 2025, or just fully guarantee the full uh, uh, 12, what would deem him, what would end up getting him more money in the long run as a contract sits as is right now, getting half of your roster bonus, half of your 2026 roster bonus in 2025, or going ahead and getting your full, what's that, 14.1 something million fully guaranteed next season.
I think getting the half now, because it really then cements you're getting a new contract next year, assuming that he stays healthy and has not even the year that he had last year, but even a season with 6 sacks and he's still starting and playing, and he's going to be a starting defensive lineman in 2026, which he
Well,
probably will
all
be.
right, but there's no guarantee of that. If he settles for just having half of his 2026 roster bonus pulled ahead into 2025, and if they leave his 2026, the remaining roster bonus and the remaining base salary unguaranteed, they could just turn around and cut him.
They could, but I think Heyward will bet on himself there and say they're not going to do that given his quality of play and the team's maybe lack of options of replacing. I know they drafted Derek Harmon, but you need a couple good defensive linemen for this team. And Harmon's playing left defensive end right now, taking Ogunjobi's spot. So I think that's the calculation Heyward would make. I'm just saying either way, I think there's problems and obstacles to overcome in either of those two scenarios you laid out. One where the team has the issue, one where Heyward's going to have the issue.
Sure, but I mean, put your financial hat on. Would you rather get an extra $6.475 million this year with no guarantee that you're going to get any more for 2026, or would you like to go ahead and just know that you're going to earn another 14 point whatever million next year?
But isn't he just going to ask for more money next year too? Because he'll still be underpaid next year too.
Sure, but I mean, what if he has an injury ravaged season, and what if he, it could just fall off the cliff for him. So why not take the guaranteed money now and then worry about next season? Okay, I had another great season. Like this is 2026 is unequivocally going to be my final year. Can we up my cash a little bit?
Maybe. I don't know what's in his heart and his head right now, but I don't know if he'll want to do the no new money thing 2 years in a row, especially where I think he's banging the table and said, listen, everyone doubted me last year. I was coming off the injury in 23. Everyone thought I was cooked. I appreciate you guys giving me the contract, but there was no new money there. So even you guys had some concern and skepticism, which was founded. No one knew exactly how good Heyward would be as a 35-year-old defensive tackle coming off an injury-marred 23 season, but I kicked butt. I was one of the best and still am one of the best interior defensive linemen. I need a raise now to show that. I think that's going to be his approach and mentality, and I understand that.
Right, and especially when you look around him and all the money that's been flung out around the team. You got an outsider coming in Jalen Ramsey, going to earn $19.5 million in cash from the Steelers, and that doesn't even count the cash that he's getting from the Dolphins. But I mean, from what the Steelers side of it, they're going to pay him $19.5 million. Right, and then you got, and even though it breaks down differently year by year, cash wise. He's only earning 4 point something more million in cash in Heyward is this year than Derek Harmon is.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about. Now, I'm just taking these questions and this approach from the Heyward hat. How is Heyward and his agent thinking about it? From the team standpoint, like I said, the concern is if Heyward goes down that path of give me a raise this year, we're doing this all over next year, and we're doing this for a third straight season, having to deal with a contract with Cam Heyward. Let me back up and just say, for those who say, Heyward just signed a contract last year, he wants another contract this year, that's being greedy, how would you respond to that?
I would say, look, he got no new cash in 2024. He got the same amount of cash that his previous contract called for. So, and he lowered it by doing the deal that he did. He also lowered his new money average to 14 point whatever million it was, and then he did not receive any guaranteed money past 2024. So the team very easily, by doing the deal that they did with him, could have just easily turned around and cut him before paying him the March 2025 roster bonus. So it really wasn't a huge win for him, other than him getting his 2024 money going from unguaranteed to fully guaranteed.
Fair. And I agree. I think that's an important and lost part. I know that it's easy to look at this overall and say, Heyward, you just got paid. Why do you want paid again? But as you're laying out, he really didn't get paid in the sense of he didn't get new money last year or new cash last year.
Right. His cash flow last season did not change one bit. And period. And now there's the benefit, obviously, of having a March roster bonus, because it forces the team to make a decision on you. But that decision could have gone the other way on him just as easy, because that wasn't guaranteed. Now there might have been, I'm sure the language in that roster bonus was probably injury guarantee.
But that's not the concern. The concern was, is he off the cliff or not, was the question we had this time a year ago.
Right. So, and then, you look obviously into click down as far as the cash. He goes now from 16 million in cash earnings in 2024 down to $14.75 million in cash this year.
Okay, so I've taken the approach from the Heyward and his agent angle, the pro Heyward stance. Let's look at the other viewpoint. Is there a history of Pittsburgh doing a revised contract back-to-back years like this before? Is there any history on that?
Well, if you look back at the AB, they moved the money forward, and then the next offseason he got the new deal because he was in the final year. I don't remember an instance where in other words, you're saying if they were to move money ahead for Heyward from 2026 to 2025 and then don't sign him to an extension, but up his cash in 2026. Has there ever been an instance of that?
I was asking probably a little more broadly, just in terms of where their contracts done in back-to-back years. So I think AB applies, but also AB applies more. It's more analogous to Boswell's situation, where you're doing that because you believe that extension is going to come the year after, and you're doing this just to preserve your precedent and not doing a deal 2 years out. So AB, I think, fits the answer to my question, but I understand how old was AB at that point, like 27, 28,
sure.
And it's a different situation than Heyward's sitting in right now. So the team might sit there and say, listen, Cam, we didn't have to give you the deal last year, even though it was no new cash. We could have let this thing play out. You were coming off the injury season. History said you were going to fall off the cliff. You look at Warren Sapp and John Randall, 35 years old, whenever that cliff really begins. We took a little leap of faith, even just giving you that contract, and maybe not a leap of faith, but we showed some good faith in giving you that deal that you wanted because you mean so much to this organization. We can't do this again, and we're going to have to probably do this next year if we're going to do it this year too. So I think the team might have some pushback in saying, we just can't keep doing this contract dance every single year with you.
Right, and that's the pushback from a lot of the fan base, and I get it too. And the pushback is, well, he shouldn't have signed that deal. He should have said, okay, if you don't want to give me more money in 2000 for the 2024 season, I'll just play out the final year of this contract and take my chances, and then test free agency if need be, and find out what my real market value is, and then try to negotiate a 2 or 3 year deal at that point. So yeah, I obviously see the pushback from Steeler fans saying, well, nobody twisted his arm to sign the deal that he did, and okay, good for him. He went out and had a career year, but this is what you signed up for 2025 and 2026. Maybe you shouldn't have signed the deal.
Right. And it's not one of those things where a guy signs a 5-year contract and then in year 3 wants the new deal. And then somebody says, oh, you signed the contract, because you never know what life's going to be like 3 years, and markets change so much. I mean, Heyward just signed this deal less than 1 year, a little 11 months ago, he signed this contract. So he knew kind of what the future was going to look like there. So I'm just trying to give a balanced take of both sides, how they're viewing it and how this stance is going to go. Because this is pretty unique, I think, overall, to have this contract situation pop up a year after. And should we have seen this coming? Should we have seen this as a potential issue earlier in the offseason, Dave?
We should have probably after the season that he had, based relative on the market and the cash flow. Yes.
Now, this is, I guess you can call this a hold-in, but I would say he is doing more in training camp this year than, say, a TJ Watt did in his hold-in in that was a 21 season. I mean, TJ Watt, I don't think he really even ever dressed, and he would do some individual stuff very much on the side. Heyward is more active, I would say, than Watt was in past hold-ins, but he is not. I'm trying to think. I have to check my notes if he worked in the team periods early in training camp. Let me do that now. He has not worked in the team periods in at least several days, at least the past week. But even if you call this a hold-in, I would say this is a little more. He's doing a little bit more activity than maybe traditional holding where you sit there in street clothes and just watch practice the way that, say, a Micah Parsons is holding it right now, or Scary Terry or Brandon Ayuk last year as examples.
All right. So what are you looking for to see how much he participated early in camp?
Yeah, I just want to see if he was in any of the team periods at all. Yeah, he did work in team period early in training camp. I don't know exactly when that stopped. So I wondered, did he just recently come to the team about this? Or did he say, I'll be there for the acclimation period? Because he was there for OTAs, which he was there for OTAs this year. I wonder whenever he stopped getting the team work. Let me find the date on that, Dave.
All right.
Do you think this is a recent thing? Do you think the team knew this was coming this offseason, where Heyward was saying back in?
I think I find it hard to imagine his agent just all of a sudden looked at this, like, "Oh my God, look what you're."
Sure.
If that's the case, you need to fire that agent here. While you look for that, and I've tried to put my look. I'm pro player. I've always been pro player. I will always be pro player when it comes to this stuff. And people say, well, you can't, I can't go to my job and look, you got a different set of parameters here. All right, you don't like your job, start learning to play football or something. When it comes to this, you and I, that option is off the table now at this point.
Yeah,
but
it's just a different world. The NFL players and you and I, the 9 to 5s.
If you don't like it, don't watch it. And as my old man used to tell me, don't hate the player, hate the game. Now my old man would obviously take my old man would be on the side of most of the fans saying he signed a contract, because my dad was a government worker and civil service, and it wasn't like my dad could hold out. You're not going to hold out on me, are you, Alex?
I'll let you know. My agent will call your agent.
All right. Look, after looking at this from several different angles, and look, I've never been shy about saying, no, that's too much money, or this is what the market value is, or no way this happens, and all like that. But I think looking at this as objectively as I possibly can, trying to take in Cam's age, what he means to the organization, and plus taking into account what the team probably wants to spend cash wise this year, and the risk involved, and the optics, and the precedent, and all like that. I really think the best solution for this is to just guarantee the roster bonus in 2026 and the $1.3 million base salary. And I think that's a good settlement for 2025. And then when you get to after this season, then you look at things, how he's playing and all like that. Then you decide what needs to be done with the final year of that contract.
I'll go the other way. I think your suggestion of taking that roster bonus, cutting it in half in a sense, and moving it up to 2025 to get his cash up this year is what Heyward is going to definitely want, and makes the most amount of sense to get the situation solved. Now, there's reason for the team to push back on that, but I just think in terms of what's the most likely thing to occur, or what makes the most amount of sense to me to try to get this done, maybe it's not half that roster bonus. Maybe it's a quarter of it. We sit there and say, yeah, maybe you're still underpaid, but we're doing some good faith here and giving you some new cash you didn't get last year. Maybe there is some middle ground to be had there. It's 3 instead of 6. I don't know. But I think something like that seems to fit and is a better solution than yours. I'm not opposed to yours if they do that, and that's great for the team because there's no new money there. I mean, you're guaranteeing it, but you probably think, well, Heyward will be a Steeler next year, so all good there. But I think that's the more likely way this thing goes is to some sort of cash advance.
All right, then why wouldn't you say I want half of the next year's roster bonus now as a signing bonus for 2025, and I want the other half of that roster bonus fully guaranteed along with my base salary of 2026?
No, this is compromise. This is the dance. I'm sure Heyward may be asking that. I think that's you start high, obviously, and you try to get as much as you can, and the team will try to get as little as it can, and you meet in the middle. So you say, in lieu of guaranteeing that roster bonus next year, we're going to do a little more on the cash advance, this year. And there's always give and take on these deals, so you can certainly ask for it, and you should probably, shoot for the stars and try to land on the moon, kind of a thing. But I'm just trying to think of good, happy solutions for both sides.
All right. Well, I tell you, from a financial standpoint, if they're not going to guarantee me any of my 2026, I mean, if the only new money I'm going to get is half of my 2026 roster bonus in 2025, and you're not going to guarantee anything beyond that, then I'd much rather you just guarantee my full roster bonus next year and my base salary. That way, if something happens, I'm walking away with more money.
Fair. Maybe you do the half roster bonus and guarantee the base salary next year, which I know is a very small amount, but there's some guarantee there at least for next season. I don't know. I'm just spitballing ideas, but I think he's going to want some new money in his pocket this year because he didn't get it last year. And how do you sit there and say a guy who had, I will say, a historically good year for a 35-year-old defensive tackle? He put up numbers we have rarely seen before, second most sacks ever by an interior defensive lineman age 35 or older. The 8 sacks he had last year, elite run defense. I mean, he was still a top 5, if not top 3 interior defensive lineman last year. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah.
How does that guy get not a single dollar more this year on a new contract situation?
Right. Well, look, and the pushback obviously from the fan base. He did it. He did the unthinkable last year. What's the odds of him doing it again in, having a similar or close to type season that he had last year at his age, being another year older?
Sure, I get that, but he's proven he can hold off other time. The team has a harder case to make against that this year because of what he did last year off the injury in 23, going into 24. There was more of a case. There was more unknown. I was still confident. I think we were both confident he could play well. I probably didn't expect him to have as good a season as he had,
right,
but I thought he would have a good season. I was okay with the contract, extension, the reworking last year. But again, I do want to recognize in my scenario in which he gets some sort of new cash this year, pulling from 26, we're doing the song and dance next year, likely, unless Heyward completely falls off a cliff and you cut him and you eat whatever money there is to eat. And the team, I'm sure, does not want to go down that road another year older, another year from now.
Right. I mean, regardless of how you work this thing out, or even if nothing is done, you could still be having this conversation a year from now.
Sure. So what do you think actually? I mean, you already kind of laid out what you think happens. Does this thing just get done in September? Will this thing get done sooner? What is the team's posture? What is going to be the final, outcome of the situation?
All right. As far as timing goes, it makes sense to do this after the preseason, right?
I mean, he's not going to play in the preseason, if any, regardless, but probably business to take care of after roster cutdowns and things are a little less crazy, sure.
Same with Boz, too. You don't want him out there falling down the stairs or something, right? I mean, the key thing is to get this done by the first Sunday of the league year. So
when did Heyward sign that deal last year?
September 6th or something, wasn't it?
So right before the season, correct?
Right.
Okay. Fair. Probably see a repeat of that.
So that's the timing aspect. I think this, you don't want to do anything with either of these two guys until the latest possible minute.
Sure, just to make sure they're healthy and good to go.
Right. Now, as far as which way I think this thing will end up going? After giving it long thought, sleeping on it, I like my scenario of just fully guaranteeing his March roster bonus of $12.95 million and his $1.3 million base salary. I think that is the fairest thing to do all the way around. and makes the most sense for both sides.
Okay, fair. But you think something will get done? There will be some contract revisement, big or small, before the season begins?
Some sort of adjustment, let's call it an adjustment. Some sort of adjustment will be done.
I agree. I think it will get done. I'm very interested in seeing what that looks like, because we basically knew how last year was going to go. They weren't going to give him new money. You basically, I think, called it how that contract reworking adjustment was going to go. Turn that money into a signing bonus, and give him a little extra couple of years on that deal, spread things out, and go from there. So this year will be interesting. Heyward apparently declined to speak with the media yesterday. He had yesterday off. And by the way, I squirreled myself here. The answer to my question from earlier, he did work the first 4 days in that acclimation padless practices. And then he has not practiced in team period since. So July 27th was his last practice. There was that rain out. But yeah, no one practiced that day. But the 27th was his last actual full practice with the team.
All right. So this has been in the works for a little while.
You would think.
The team knows about it.
Yeah, I mean, you would think. But it's interesting because, and maybe that's one reason why I wasn't thinking about Heyward wanting a new contract, even though he hadn't really been practicing or only been a partial participant, because I just figured, well, he practiced the first 4 days, so he's out there working. It's pretty status quo. They're going to keep him in a bubble. He doesn't need those reps this year. I wonder how Heyward will react. Again, didn't speak with the media. He has his podcast. I think he talked about his contract situation last year. I imagine it will come up on the next episode, which I believe comes out Tuesday. Each Tuesday, his Not Just Football podcast drops. So I'm sure we'll hear about Heyward from there.
Yeah, more. He'll speak on this at some point.
Yeah, so I assume he'll talk about it with his co-host there, Hayden Walsh. So We'll see. It'll be interesting. But yeah, there was a lot of pushback on Heyward's deal last year from the fan base, and that seems to be still the same this year, even after Heyward's 2024 campaign.
And I think the key thing here is to remember when talking about this is that he got no new money last year. No new cash.
Right. But I think people see he signed a contract and now he's going to wants to sign another contract. And listen, I get it. I mean, I'm not trying to be like 100% just give Heyward whatever he wants here. I get the argument against. I get the team's argument if we can't just keep doing contracts each summer. So, I think there's a case to be made of just Heyward, you signed the contract, play it out. But I think ultimately knowing how valuable Heyward is to the team, how much he means to the team, how much they need him, they're going to have to work something out.
And look, for the people that say, well, what's to stop every player from every year saying, I want my contract, I want more money. There's nothing to stop that. You can ask all day long whether or not you're in a good position to do that is another argument all to itself. Yeah, if you're down there making $3.5 million and think you're worth $7 million, good luck. Barring you're not a guy like Deshaun Elliott, or you better have it. You better have the resume to back it up if you're going to go in there asking for more money. Because if not, then odds are it's just going to fall on deaf ears.
Yeah, you need the leverage, you need the resume, you need the reasons to make the case and convince the team. And I think Heyward has it. But again, I think something will get done. I think the more interesting question will be how that gets accomplished exactly.
Right.
All right, we'll keep you posted on it, but check out the article Dave wrote that really lays it out well. I know in the audio format, it might be a little bit wonky to try to follow, but I think it was a really good discussion. I don't think we got in the weeds too much. I think we laid it out in layman's terms as best as possible, but check out the article Dave wrote because it really lays out every detail for Boz and Heyward exceptionally well.
All right, thank you for that.
All right, Dave, let's talk about Mike Tomlin, who had his Thursday press conference at noon yesterday before practice, gave an overview of the preseason game number 1. He mentioned the long list of players who will not play in this game, and it's probably a shorter list to say who will play in this game, but the guys who will sit out in this one, at least due to kind of their veteran statuses, are Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Jalen Warren, Pat Fryermuth, Jonnu Smith, Isaac Seumalo, Jalen Ramsey, Joey Porter Jr., Darius Slay, Deshaun Elliott, Patrick Queen, TJ Watt, Cam Heyward, Nick Herbig, and Chris Boswell. Herbig, interesting to put on that list as a guy that's not a true veteran, not like the others, and probably could have played a little bit in this one, but I think it just kind of shows what the team thinks of Herbig, that he's the guy, pretty established, would start for a bunch of other teams and doesn't need those reps.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the more interesting names on the list. Look, I would not have Nick Herbig out there playing special teams. I don't think you need that aspect in preseason game number one. I'd like to see him out there get lathered up for a couple of series at right outside linebacker and play the run a couple of times. I mean, we all know what he can do. Look, I'm not. Neither one of us are losing sleep over this, right? First preseason game, Nick Herbig sitting, but it was a little bit of a surprising name overall when you look at the list there. And Mike Tomlin basically said, with these veteran guys, they need less of a runway to get ramped up, yada yada. Grizzly veterans, all like that. So I understand a lot of these names on the list. He was asked if Aaron Rodgers will play at some point during the preseason. He said it's too early. He's just worried about getting through this game right now. I suppose that's the same stance he's going to take on some of these other veterans as well too. So as far as the non-injured guys that won't play, in lieu of getting some of these younger guys a long look, I definitely understand it.
Rodgers not playing in the opener. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Indifferent? How do you feel?
I'm indifferent. I would obviously like to see him out there, and get some work with this offense at some point during these final two preseason. And look, even Rodgers said, the scrimmages are probably more beneficial to him than going up against vanilla defenses in the preseason.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about in-stadium action, getting the call in your helmet, which I know they already do in practice, but just being away in that environment, more natural. But it's not Rodgers missing. I think the offense being better this week and at least perking up a bit from where they were is maybe one reason why the Tomlin decided we don't need Rodgers to play, because the offense has at least shown some signs of life that they were continuing to really struggle the way that they had early in training camp. Maybe you're more convinced to get them out there a little bit to at least get a look against the defense that is not the Steelers' own. But I think that, and of course, Rodgers being 41 and just make sure he's good to go for the season. I do think he'll play a preseason game. I think we'll get out there for the tune-up game where all the starters will play.
You dang sure don't want what happened to Anthony Richardson, right? Somebody, him or I haven't diagnosed that play and all like that, but him getting crushed and you don't want that with a veteran Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, now Richardson I think missed that call. That's a full slide protection. So hot on that one. Richardson didn't, so he kind of got himself crushed. Rodgers wouldn't allow that to happen. But point taken, you don't want a big hit there in a game. So I'm okay with Rodgers sitting this out and the starters, sitting it out. And I think most of those guys will end up playing a little bit this preseason.
All right, let's see. And so their practice participation has been limited, and so the likelihood of their participation is minimal. First Saturday night, an example of those guys are Calvin Austin, Alex Highsmith, Dante Kent, and Corey Trice. There's no plan yet in place in terms of amount of play time for those that will be playing. Our mindset is if you're in uniform, you're prepared to play throughout the course of the game. It's up to the coordinators whether or not some of those people will be used throughout the game.
I think from an injury standpoint, the most interesting comment Tomlin made was he is not counting out Will Howard for the entire preseason. Now, Howard's not going to play in this game. He's wearing a black splint on his injured right hand yesterday. I imagine that'll be on for a little bit, but Tomlin, admittedly, he said he was optimistic and taking the optimistic route, but he did not rule him out for the ensuing preseason games.
Yeah, he was asked specifically, do you think it's possible he could play in the preseason? He said, certainly.
And then I think he said something about being an optimist about it, because the timeline from Rappaport when the initial report came out about the fractured pinky finger was 3 weeks, which would put you past the 21st, which is the preseason finale against Carolina. Now, I still think it's going to be really tight to try to make this happen, not only from a medical standpoint of getting clear, but then you got to get the reps too, and got to have the reps out there in practice. You really need to be cleared like a week ahead of time of that game just to get the practice reps for a rookie who's missed some time. And I just think that's going to be too tight of a turnaround.
Yeah, he was asked, is Will Howard's injury kind of a short-term one? He says, yeah, I think I would characterize it as week to week at this juncture. I'll be optimistic, and we'll see what next week holds.
Yeah, I mean, I think you leave the light on. I get the standpoint, but I am not expecting Will Howard to take a snap in preseason action this year, Dave.
I need 4 preseason games, don't we?
We do need the 4th preseason game back.
Uh,
We're not going to get our wish.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've already got. Don't get me worked up about potentially not being able to see Will Howard play during the preseason. I was really looking forward to that.
Me too. What else did Mike Tomlin say? I missed the presser. I was on my way to camp when it happened. Listened to it back. I don't know if anything else stuck out in a dramatic way. The health of the team and who's playing and who's not is the most notable thing for preseason action. But what else did Tomlin point out?
I think, and this just went along obviously with the line of questions. You can only answer what you're asked and all, but I think two guys that I think it's the weekend of the Wilsons, if you will, Roman Wilson and Peyton Wilson. He was asked specifically about those two guys, and he says, what are you kind of looking to see from him with the first team? And he said, I just expect to see similar things that I've seen out here, continual get better in playmaking. He's highly conditioned. I expect that to show in his play, really focused on his offensive contributions this week. Next week, we're going to infuse some more special teams than we tentatively had planned this week because we think it's appropriate. So basically, I guess don't expect most of the focus for Roman Wilson on Saturday night against Jacksonville to be offensive and less special teams. And then it sounds like we could see potentially in the second preseason game, maybe him get more of that special team stuff mixed in.
Yeah, because that second game is now really the tune-up game, right? And so maybe more of the starters play in that one. Wilson is still running first team in a lot of ways, but maybe there's more opportunities for him to do other things with other starters playing in this game. I thought Aaron Rodgers had some really interesting comments on Wilson a couple days ago. I think the general thought from Rodgers was just Roman's a super talented guy. He just has to kind of get out of his own head and just make the play and just not focus on the pressure and the weight and the circumstances. Just go out there and do your job, and if he does, he'll be in good shape. So I thought that was an interesting comment. I think he talked about Roman Wilson really taking criticism to heart, not from him, but just in general, just kind of feeling the weight of it all and just kind of playing loose and playing free is the best thing for Roman Wilson.
Yeah, he's got the trying too hard disease, I guess.
Cares too much.
Trying to be perfect instead of, and that's probably slowing him down a little bit.
Yeah, kind of one of those. What's the saying? Enemy of perfect. I forget the saying. I'm butchering it, but you get the idea.
Enemy called average.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So, big opportunity here for Roman Wilson. I mean, this will be his first game action. He got the 5 snaps against the Raiders last year, but wasn't targeted. Obviously barely played. So this is really kind of a clean slate start for Roman Wilson.
Right. And as far as the other Wilson goes, Peyton sounds like he's going to wear the green dot, and they're really excited to see what he can bring on defense in his first preseason game.
Same. I'm super excited for Peyton Wilson. I think they want to give this guy as much runway as possible. The more he can do, I think their goal is for Wilson and Queen to be the guys. That ideally there is no 3-man rotation, that it's Wilson and Queen and base and nickel, and then Queen in your dime package, and maybe not even play a ton of dime if they feel like the inside linebackers who are good athletes and great athletes can run and cover. So I think they want to let Wilson go as far as he takes them.
Right. So it's going to be interesting to track. And look, he's another guy. I'm not sure you burn him up on special teams out there in his first preseason game. Get all of his work in on defense and get more comfortable with him there, especially wearing a green dot.
Yeah, he should not play a single snap on special teams in this game. Now, he's gotten some work. There was a wing on the punt team, but you're not going to have this guy go run down punts and then go play defense right after the fact. So I don't see the need for that. You have enough depth overall to get other special teamers work and young guys who need it. Just let him focus on playing defense, communicating, getting off of blocks, playing the run harder, trusting himself, all that kind of stuff. But I've been encouraged by his training camp and really excited by what Peyton Wilson can offer in year number 2.
I'm with you. He was asked about Caleb Johnson. I'm stuck on the Wilsons. Caleb Johnson and how he'll handle things outside of running the football with all the other responsibilities running backs have. He says, I love his general demeanor. Regarding the get better, he's a work in progress, like a lot of young runners in terms of blitz pickup, recognition, not only on the NFL level, but technically, the posture that's required and how to create power and so forth. He's been really impressive in that he's a young man that doesn't run away from things. He runs to things, and so he's getting better in all areas. And look, I mean, you can't help but get excited to however many snaps he's going to wind up playing on Saturday night, examining all those, not only carrying the football, but in the instance of the plays where he doesn't carry the football. So I'm sure that however many snaps he plays, it will have probably a film room up on him.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. And obviously, as a runner, you want to see it first time out. These preseason games can be sloppy and messy. I'm sure he'll run behind his first team offensive line. Sansei Malu, who won't play, Spencer Anderson should start, but you'll get some burn behind them. But overall, running in the preseason can be pretty sloppy. So I'm really interested in seeing him without the ball. Pass protection,
Yep.
receiving, maybe some kick returns too, because those will be the real test of how much this guy can play.
Absolutely. So, as far as what else Tomlin said, I guess you could kind of go back to kind of the overarching things that Mike Tomlin's looking for and what kind of we're looking for as well, too. Look, love to win the game. Absolutely. You play to win the game. But, I was watching that Raiders game last night, and boy, the first half with the miscues and the misalignments and the penalties and all like that. How clean of a game can the Steelers have when it comes to silly stuff, wasted plays, and watching that Raiders game, or really a couple of them last night, don't get yourself in the second and 20 or the third and 38s or something where you're just going to have to waste a play.
Sure.
Obviously you want to see how technical and one-on-one type stuff, but this is going to be vanilla on both sides of the ball for both teams, top to bottom. But I think one of the things, and Tomlin obviously looking for this as well too, how clean can you be on both sides of the ball from a penalty and just a flat out operational standpoint? Can you at least show that you know what your assignment is as units and in as many plays as possible?
100%, Dave. It's such an underrated and overlooked aspect because it's not sexy to talk about, but it is the foundation of everything. This is all about earning coaches' trust. Can they trust you to go out there and execute the play, which means knowing your assignment, playing clean, no pre-snap penalties. Mike Tomlin harped on that. And those are things that you can get in a practice, but inside a stadium where your coaches aren't 5 feet away from you, it's a little different. The offense sometimes will get to re-huddle. If there's some miscommunication, you don't get that in a stadium. There's no chance to do it over. So, yeah, that's a big underrated component. Can you go out there and execute, do your job, know your job, play it cleanly without penalties, without sloppiness, whether that's exchanges, handoffs, false starts, offsides, all that kind of stuff. That is a really big component, especially this first time out for these young guys.
All right. How do you think the quarterback rotation will work in this one?
I imagine it's going to be pretty clean. No Rodgers in this one. Mason Rudolph, I think, will get the first half. Skylar Thompson the second half, and maybe a couple handoffs late from Logan Woodside.
All right. I'll say that Mason does not play the entire first half. Probably plays maybe a quarter and then some, and then give way to Skylar Thompson. I don't know. Do you maybe let Rudolph come out in the second half to see how
No.
Okay.
No,
All
once his
right.
day's done, it's done.
All right. I imagine in my head Skylar Thompson closing out the first half and then obviously open up the second half and playing into the fourth quarter. And then you get into those final 2 or 3 series or whatnot, and you let Logan Woodside come in and just run some extremely vanilla stuff.
Yeah, I think if you're ahead, you might get Woodside in there, but he didn't practice with the team in the team period. He went through individual work. I know he knows the offense well, which gives him an upper hand to get on that moving train. But if you're behind and you're trying to change some protections or just run something more than just a couple pass plays, probably putting Woodside in a tough spot there. So I think you keep it clean. I mean, you only have, to me, you functionally have two quarterbacks in this game. No Rodgers, Woodside just got here. Howard's hurt. So I think you make it pretty easy. Rudolph first half. It's good to get him snaps too, because he won't get them whenever the season starts. So get some exposure right now. I'm good with that. And then Thompson the whole second half. That should still give plenty of opportunities for both quarterbacks.
All right, Metcalf not playing. Doesn't sound like Calvin Austin III is going to play in this one. Lay me out the from the skill position, the starting 11 personnel.
Yeah, good question. No Jalen Warren in this one. So Johnson, your running back. Your three receivers yesterday with those guys missing was Roman Wilson, Ben Skoranek, and Brandon Johnson. So I know Robert Woods could mix in there. Same with Scotty Miller. But to answer your question, based on yesterday, I will say it'll be Johnson, Skoranek, and Roman.
All right. How about early game 12 personnel? And who's your tight end within that? It's got to be Washington, right? In the 11.
Oh, in 11, yeah, I'm sorry. In 11, yeah, it'll be Washington. Although, how much do you really need Washington to play in this game? Maybe the first two drives, because you don't have a lot of tight ends right now. But I'm not giving Washington a lot of time in this one. Doesn't need it. 12 personnel, Washington, whenever he's in there, and then Connor Heyward. I mean, then you have golf. I mean, you don't have many tight ends. You have three tight ends who are healthy right now. So I think they need to probably bring somebody back. But I mean, it's Washington and Heyward, and then once Washington exits, it's Heyward and Galbraith. And unless Thomas Jones can get cleared for this game, then those are your two guys.
All right, and probably not expecting a lot of 13 personnel in this one, right?
No, probably an 11 a lot. We talked about logistically, just easier to do that. You're not really concerned about running your offense, to a T. You're just trying to get good reps and good looks and good opportunities for all the guys. Their offensive line, so left to right should be Broderick Jones, Spencer Anderson, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Troy Fautanu. Second team will be interesting. Neighborhood goes from there. You would think Dylan Cook at left tackle. Anderson may stay in at left guard, get him a bunch of reps. Sharping at center, then right guard, Doug Nestor probably, and then likely Stephen Jones at right tackle.
All right. Walk me through the opening defense with all these guys sidelined.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even given that a lot of thought. So your base 3-4 defense or your nickel?
Yeah, do both. Do a base, do a nickel.
Base defense, a Harmon, Benton, and we'll see if Black gets in there, but I'll say Loudermilk off the top here. Edge rushers of Sawyer and Leal without Watt, Highsmith, or Herbig. Inside backers, Peyton Wilson. We'll see if it's Holcomb or Malik Harrison. They were mixing and matching, rotating yesterday with Queen getting the day off. They'll probably just rotate series on that. Cornerbacks of Eccles and Pierre. Nickel corner of Bishop in your sub packages. And then your safeties of Thornhill, and we'll see the other safety. No Elliott in this game. It'll either be Killebrew or Chuck Clark.
All right.
So that's your group. Return lines will be interesting too. Punt returners, you're going to see Scotty Miller, Keyshawn Williams, Max Hurlman, potentially Robert Woods. Those guys could all be in the mix. Kick returners, Caleb Johnson, Kenneth Gainwell. Who else could get time back there? Evan Hull, Hurlman as well has been getting punt and kick return duty. Deshaun Jameson as a defensive player who might get a look as well.
All right, and Rock Taylor probably in that second team unit that comes in on offense.
I mean, the receivers always mix and match. I mean, you're going to have, if it is the starters of Skoranek and Roman Wilson, Brandon Johnson, then your next kind of group of three probably would be Robert Woods and Scotty Miller and Rock Taylor, sure.
All right.
And the punter battle, Mike Tomlin talked about that. Sure. The punter battle heating up, and both varsity to Waitman and Johnston. He said they're going to trade punts in this one and probably continue trading punts until they have an answer of who's going to be the guy. So I think both guys have had nice camps. They're both experienced, both have NFL resumes, so that'll be a fun battle to watch.
All right. That should lay out a good idea of what at least through the first half looks like for both sides of the football.
Dave, I want to air a grievance about a game, not Saturday, but a little over a month from now, next month, about the Ireland game in Dublin. As I try to find the article that I'm trying to pull up here, Art Rooney had a one-on-one interview with WTAE, a local Pittsburgh station, the other day as part of the station's ongoing coverage of this first regular season game in Ireland, week 4 against Minnesota. And back in May, Art Rooney had said, kind of more loosely, but said the plan was going to be basically the same in terms of when this team was going to leave for Ireland. And he doubled down on those comments and basically made it sound finalized, because I imagine the trip is basically planned out with it being, I don't know, 6-7 weeks away. So Rooney told WTAE, quote, "I think the team is planning to leave on Thursday, arriving in Dublin Friday morning. So we'll have 2 practices Friday and Saturday and the game on Sunday, and leave right after the game," end quote. And just to be clear, when Rooney says 2 practices, that means 1 practice on Friday, 1 practice on Saturday. They'll have walkthroughs as well. This was the same plan as the team had in 2013 for their London trip against Minnesota, a loss which has been highly criticized by multiple players, including Cam Heyward, still a Steeler, who said leaving Thursday night basically and arriving Friday morning was, quote, "the worst thing we did for that trip." He said coaches and players were sleeping in meetings, players falling asleep during the warm-ups. Ben Roethlisberger has talked about how bad of an idea that was. They were gassed and exhausted at the time. And yet, despite that, they're going to do the same exact schedule this time around. My question is, why?
What's the reason for everything? Money.
You think this is purely a financial decision?
I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked.
I know the narrative is it's easy to say that Rooney is cheap. I don't know if that's the driving reason. In fairness, I think there's some data that says most teams leave Thursday, arrive Friday for these international trips.
I don't care about most teams.
I know. I know. I'm just saying. They should not be beholden to that. I'm just saying that I think it's the general format. I think the reason is teams still like to practice at their own facility. It's a little easier logistically to handle that, and then just kind of get there a little bit later than having to spend the whole week over there. But I think based on how badly it went, the last time, and certainly the reasons of jet lag and adjusting to the time zone and everything, I think it's crazy this team is going to do the same exact thing.
I agree. And if this thing goes the way it did the last time they played the Vikings in London, you can bet this will be a talking point.
Right. They came out very flat in that one, tried a furious late comeback. They came up 6 yards short. So that kind of floors me. I think Minnesota left early in that 2013 game. I don't know their plans. Obviously, it's a new coaching staff this time around, so I don't know what they've done in past years. I'm assuming they played international games. They played one last year, I know, because they played against Aaron Rodgers and picked him off. So I don't know when they're leaving, but regardless, it's pretty tone deaf to me to hear, unless Rooney's truly oblivious of those comments, which maybe he is, but either way, that's not a pass. So I don't know how they're doing the same thing all over again.
Look, I mean, hopefully they open it up to discussion with Omar and Mike and, Cam Heyward, and talked about what happened last time. You would think they did.
I don't know if they did. I would like to think they did, but if they did, that might be worse if they talked about it and said we're going to do the same thing after how badly it was blasted. So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
If you win, all of this is going to be you guys overreacted. But if they lose for whatever reason, this will be part of the conversation.
Yeah, there's still process, and maybe you can make that trip and do some things differently. Because again, most teams do leave Thursday and arrive Friday, and I assume most teams can avoid the jet lag aspect. So maybe you don't go to practice right away. Maybe you land, take a nap, and then go practice. I mean, maybe you do different things. I don't know. I'm sure there are some things you can do. I'm sure how teams handle that time, that 48-hour period from leave to game, are different, and you have different results, some better than others. So if they are going to at least have the itinerary the same, there has to be some change in the schedule to make sure these guys are more rested than they were the last time.
All right, I understand the bone that you're picking.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But Rooney doubling down, and I assume that is basically set in stone because it's probably too late to change plans when you have this game coming up here in just a couple of weeks. So anything else? Any other news, Dave? Any other comments from players? I know there's been Brian McFadden had some really good interviews with Jalen Ramsey. Who else? DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers. I thought the Rodgers interview was really good. You hear about Mike Tomlin say this guy just loves football, and you really got that feeling and that sense whenever McFadden was talking about players part of Rodgers' draft class. Who was it? Cadillac Williams and Roddy Whites of the world, and Rodgers kind of lit up and talked about their history and their careers and their post-careers. This is a guy that, regardless what you think about him as a person, this dude has an appreciation for football.
Yeah, boy, he sure was able to rattle off those players, right? And I bet most players can rattle off all the players, especially first rounders that were drafted before them. Some of the second rounders as well too. Look, Aaron's obviously going to be judged of what happens on the field, but I think versus the narrative, talking about how he was as a teammate and his personality and all like that, versus what we've seen so far in these numerous interviews. I think he's said all, I can't help but go back to the recent comments that thrown in his face about what Terry Bradshaw had to say and how he responded to that and taking the high road. And also, I think he's handling himself in the media the way you would want him to.
Yeah, I think everything has been good so far. As we've said, all that matters is they win games. If they win, Rodgers will be loved. If they lose, he'll be hated. It's a true pass fail, and that's fine. That's how it should be. It's a results-oriented business, the NFL and sports are. But the interviews I've enjoyed.
All right.
All right, Dave. Anything else? If not, we can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, this one from Nicholas Gooden writes in, Old Raj versus Big Ben. Happy Friday. How would you guys compare this version of late career Rodgers versus late stages of Big Ben, both individually and the strength of the team around them? Boy, that's a wide open question there. Look, I mean, I've yet to see Rodgers in a Steeler uniform right now. I think one of the main takeaways Alex talked about recently is he's still got his fastball when it comes to throwing the football and being able to wing it however far he needs to wing it down the field. Obviously, the mobility aspect when you compare, I mean, Ben wasn't all that mobile later on in his career. I mean, how would you compare from what you've seen this version of late career Rodgers versus the late stages of Big Ben?
Yeah, I would say with Rodgers, more mobile, even at 41, even though he was a bit older than Ben was at the time. He wasn't in his 40s yet. Rodgers can move better. Ben's knees were shot at that point with all the scar tissue and surgeries and probably arthritis, everything he was dealing with. He could not really move at all. And Rodgers' arm is a whole lot better than Ben's was. I mean, the fastball is still there. The zip on the football, the velocity, it's still very much Aaron Rodgers-like. Now, Ben's benefit was being in the system, in the offense, and running the show, and just having that comfort in Pittsburgh. And Rodgers is new and trying to figure things out and work on chemistry. So that's the difference. In terms of the teams, trying to think back, this roster probably better. The offensive line, I think, certainly can be better and is likely going to be better than when Pittsburgh went through that transitional phase of Kendrick Green, and they signed a veteran in Trey Turner because DeCastro got hurt and his career was over. So I'd like to think, and I'm pretty sure this offense as a whole is better than where it was in Ben's final seasons.
All right. Nathan Casey writes in, he's got a James Daniels hypothetical. Knowing how the guard market exploded Sayamala's last contract year and no depth on the interior, wouldn't it have been smart to offer Daniels the same 3-year, $24 million he got from the Dolphins? This year, he could have been the super depth piece on the interior, including backup center, and next year he slides back into starting guard role when Sayamala leaves. Depth now for injury, starter on about half market rate next year. The Steelers O-line depth is bad right now, that having a reliable depth piece would make sense. First and foremost, you weren't going to get this, you have Daniels coming off of, Achilles with him. And that's always, you kind of grit your teeth and clench your fist whenever any player comes off of that injury. Second, you're not going to pay a depth guy an $8 million yearly average salary just to be an ultimate swing guy. That would have prevented you from potentially spending cash in other areas of this team where they went about spending it there. So I get the preface of this overall, but And obviously, hindsight's 2020 when you look in the rearview mirror after all that's happened this offseason. But I think they made the smart move to just go ahead and let Daniels ride off into the sunset. They obviously had already drafted interior guys like Mason McCormick and Zach Frazier. You hope you can get one more good year out of Sayamalo, and you're gonna have to hope that a guy like Spencer Anderson can carry his weight should he be called upon.
Yeah, listen, don't get no argument from me. Offensive line depth is really poor on this team and concerning, but Daniels was not going to be the answer. You can't give him 3 years, 24 million to be the backup. He wouldn't want that. He wants to go be the backup. He wants to go, start and get healthy, all that kind of stuff. So that just wasn't going to be a scenario.
All right. Caleb Winterburn writes in about why Black and Alex. Never thought we'd hear it. Just like yesterday, Aaron Rodgers and Mel Blount sharing a moment on the sideline. Who would have ever thought that you would have been tweeting like this? This one's why Black and Alex. Boy, I'd like to see a picture of those two side by side.
I would not.
Hey guys, been listening since 2016. Hail from the cold Manitoba prairies. A little hot right now with the wildfires. Best Steelers podcast. No, best podcast period on the planet. Appreciate you guys and all you do on the side. All right, thanks for that, Caleb.
Thank you.
My question is for Alex regarding why Black. I remember he was super low on the pick when it happened. Alex, what were your concerns with the pick, and has why alleviated those concerns throughout camp, or has he impressed you in some other way or not?
My concerns were, could he be more than a run defender? And even then, his run defense felt inconsistent about staying on his feet, having balance and overall athleticism. And those concerns were really compounded by the idea of Pittsburgh wanting to play him at more defensive end and nose tackle. Has things shifted so far? A little bit, yeah. I think Black has had a really nice camp. I think he's been active. He's got good energy. Like I said, a little more athletic than what I thought he showed on his Iowa tapes. Maybe my evaluation on that was not accurate. Still got preseason games to go, and in-stadium action always rules the day, but feeling a little more comfortable. I still would like Black to play nose tackle. I thought maybe he's too tall, and there's a leverage issue there. I'm not quite sure, but he has not played any nose tackle. He's played both defensive end spots and also D-tackle in sub packages. So feeling better, but I know for all these guys, there's still a long ways to go.
All right. Let's see here. One other one here from Dave Duke. Writes in, thanks for all you guys do. Kind of a random question, but was wondering how the 90-man roster is paid during training camp. Obviously, when the season starts, the 53 get their game checks, but how does payment work during training camp? All these guys sign contracts. Is a portion of that money set aside for training camp payments? I highly doubt anyone is working for free. Any idea how that works? I've never really given much thought to that. I thought I've read somewhere in the past that these guys get some sort of league. It doesn't go
stipend.
Yeah, some sort of per diem or something related to that. Now look, guys during the off season, like the OTAs, and mandatory minicamp, if they attend, they get something like what is it now, $235 or $75 a day or something like that. And that's all. In fact, that total should be out pretty soon as far as what teams are charged for off-season workout bonuses. I thought I read in the past about they get some sort of league stipend or something per player for preseason. I don't have all that. I'll have to double check the CBA and all on that. I don't think I've ever went down that, but I think they get a little something for their troubles, but it does not go against the cap. I think it's more of a benefit or something.
This is from a website I am not familiar with and probably do not fully trust, but I'm going to read it off here and just be along for the ride. It says, quote, during the 2024 season, all veteran players earned $3,200 a week during both training camp and the preseason, while first-year players earned $1,850 a week, and that is per the CBA. So,
okay, I'll have to go find that in the CBA specifically. I might have read that.
I'm sure
you read so much, and I have forgotten so much that I've learned over the years because I don't use it regularly there, but that makes sense there. But once again, I don't think that I know that doesn't go against the cap.
Right. That the article also noted that it's not charged against your salary cap, but the team pays that out. That is part of their cash spending, right? It comes from it comes from the team. The NFL, the league, or the NFLPA does not pay that money.
I'll have to double check of what coffer maybe that comes from. It would make sense that the team pays it. I don't know how that's calculated as far as cash spending for the team during a year, though. How that goes on the books within that, So that's another that I'll dive into that, see if I can't find the answer to that.
And the NFL relatively recently, had the change where now players get paid over a 36-week span. So now you get paid a little bit in the offseason too. It used to be you would just only get paid during the season. Now that money is spread out a little bit more through the calendar year.
All right, one more that's been sitting in here from our buddy Michael Yarzabinski, who also, I believe, handles our app for us and did a fine job for that. Long-time listener, first-time emailer, a couple of questions, comments for you both. Assuming Jones doesn't improve much throughout training camp and the season, what schematic adjustments can be made to minimize the impact of poor left tackle play? Chips, blocking, shifts, etc., or should we continue to focus on outside additions?
It's a good question. The good news is, and these are all small sample sizes, and the regular season will be the true test, but Jones has looked better in training camp the last couple of days. So there's been some positives with Jones getting healthy, getting in pads, and I know Alex Highsmith hasn't worked, but you've still seen Jones have good reps against Herbig and even against TJ Watt once or twice. I think you'd be leaning a lot on Darnell Washington to chip and give the help of his size and, just what he can do as a pass blocker last year in training camp this year. Schematically, you change things. Rodgers has a quick snap to throw time, and so that's certainly helpful. We do more quick game type of stuff. But yeah, I think you'd really kind of lean on Darnell Washington being an assistant for Broderick Jones.
Absolutely. All right, number 2, I'd like to take a second to discuss the fire Tomlin noise of the past few seasons. With the flurry of offseason moves the Steelers have made, nearly every acquisition wants to play for Mike Tomlin. Even with Parsons requesting a trade, clips are surfacing of him wanting to play for Tomlin. If the Steelers/Tomlin were to move on, say, end of this season, do you think the Steelers still have the capability to attract high-end talent for reasonable contracts? Is this something the fan base doesn't appreciate enough about Mike Tomlin?
What do you think, Dave? I've yapped enough.
It's hard to find a coach, that I think a lot of people would say I want to play for that guy around the league. I think Mike Tomlin does do an excellent job of communicating and getting the most out of players. Personally, I think it will be interesting to see because of the tight pay and because of the landing spot and the history and all. It'll be interesting to see who the next head coach of this team is, and if there'll be continued patience the way there has with the last three head coaches.
Yeah, I think from the player connection standpoint, it's one of Tomlin's greatest assets, and it's been helpful. Now, money still talks, and in terms of player acquisition, often the highest bidder gets the guy, but I think you've seen that with Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf and Jalen Ramsey, the influence Tomlin has had in getting these guys to come to Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I think you can certainly credit Tomlin for that aspect of his coaching resume and ability.
And look, times have changed. Chuck Noll was hellfire brimstone, right? And in today's NFL, does that work with these players who like being coddled more, for lack of a better term and all? So, what happened back with the type of coach that Chuck Noll was, probably wouldn't play in today's NFL.
Yeah, it'd be a lot harder. I mean, there's a lot of styles. It was a really good clip. If you see the clip from Pete Carroll the other day, I don't know when this was. I think it was probably an older clip. I don't know if it was his time with the Raiders, but he was doing a coaching clinic and asked a question about his style of coaching versus style of coaching like Bill Belichick. He kind of talked about the differences of it, and that was revealing. So I think any coaching style can still work, but I think certainly the Noll model is a little more outdated, and the model of a little more, not even coddling, but just connecting with players more than I think Carroll talked about that authoritarian, do this, shut up, do your job, kind of tear you down type of thing. Carroll's thought was a little more collaboration than it was just shut up and go play ball and do what you're told. So I think that is certainly a more popular and more effective model these days, and Tomlin, I think, fits it. Not to say that Tomlin's going to be your best friend all the time. Tomlin can guys at training camp, he gets on them sometimes, but there's certainly a connection he can create with players.
One thing we forgot when doing the preview of the game is what Jacksonville's doing on the other side, Alex.
Yeah, we should have mentioned that. They're going to play their starters. To what degree, I'm not quite sure, but Trevor Lawrence, my namesake, will play. My future child will play. And Travis Hunter is going to play and probably play, I assume,
How's that going, by the
corner.
way?
Not great. Not great over there.
No, I saw you with a pretty girl out there
right.
in St. Vincent. You become quite... People are using you for clout now? Is that what is happening?
I've been used for worse, I've said. Anyway, back to Jacksonville. So, yeah, they're going to play their starters in this one, which will be an interesting kind of test for this Steelers offense and defense, who will be playing most of its backups.
And obviously get to see a lot of Travis Hunter in this one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know Tom was asked about that, kind of his thoughts on it, and he didn't really have any because he's just, so focused on Pittsburgh. But that's going to be a big storyline of this game, David, just Hunter being a two-way player.
I think the line, since Degenerate Dave chimed in
Yep.
the other day, I think the line has shifted a little bit on this game as well, too. I thought I saw it go from Jacksonville 2.5 to, I can't find it here. Where is
It's got to be 4.
4.5, I think I saw.
I assume it moved because the Jags announced they were playing their starters.
Probably. I don't know if I have it. Here it is. Hold on a minute here. 4.5 line right now from 2.5 just the other day. So
give me your score prediction. I know it matters not at all. What's your prediction for this game? We always do a score prediction before each Steelers game.
All right. 2013 Jaguars.
I will say 19-14 Jaguars. Get a weird 19 for a preseason game.
All right. We will be back. Are we going to do a show Sunday morning to recap, or are we going to wait until Monday morning?
Yeah, especially with camp on Monday. Let's definitely do a show Sunday morning. Yeah, expect that. Expect one probably Monday too, probably, but definitely one Sunday.
All right. So that's the plans there. Appreciate all the emails. Appreciate all the dialogue on Twitter. Appreciate you coming to SteelersDepot.com and reading the site. A lot of great content going up before, during, and after the game on Saturday. So look out for that. Alex and I will probably be back on Sunday morning to recap what happened Saturday night against the Jaguars in the first preseason game of 2025. So with that, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button and follow the directions that way. So enjoy the game. Enjoy the weekend. We'll be back on Sunday. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.